to another episode here on my channel. My name is ChaosMole, and today we have another video regarding the Blue Box conspiracy. A little bit of an update, what happened over the weekend, and some new information here and there. And we're also doing this live right now. I'm streaming this with my community, and if you ever want to join us, you can do so on trovo.live/chaosmole from Monday to Friday, starting at 9 a.m. EDT, where we have our Mole in the Morning and gaming news, and then playing some video games. Now, if you have never heard about this, the Blue Box conspiracy is basically an idea that there is an indie developer, or an allegedly indie developer called Blue Box, who is working on a new horror game, is actually a Kojima/Silent Hill project, and people follow that conspiracy because there are a lot of coincidences. Like, you could say there are no real facts really going around, but there are a lot of coincidences. And what we can definitely agree on at this point is that the developer, Blue Box, is doing a lot to fan the flames. Yes, they have put out a statement where they said, hey, we want to set the record straight. Like, we have nothing to do with Kojima, Silent Hill, yada, yada, yada. But they are saying that and doing something completely else. So they are really leaning in. Like, they are posting blurry pictures which are reminiscent of like some Metal Gear Solid character. Or they are now, and this is one of the new things, they finally released their real-time experience app on the PlayStation, and there is now a picture of a very blurry room with a door, which a lot of people reminds them of the room, Silent Hill room, right, where you have like that door, or the starting area for PT. Right, let me show you that very quickly. Like, this is the picture you can now see. It's super blurry. Like, all of the things they're showing is like super blurry. And you can see that there's clearly a door here. Like, this is a door, this is a table. And this reminds people of like the starting area in PT, where they have like the brown bag with the fetus in it, I think it was. And it's like so many coincidences that people are saying, okay, there is something up here. And at this point, there are basically three outcomes. This is all an indie studio which is just grasping for clouds and who's trying to use the hype to push their new indie game nobody would normally care for. And if that is the case, well, then this is at least a very interesting play-by-play of tons of coincidences. Like, there are tons of coincidences regarding this. The second thing which could happen here is this is a scam. There is no game. They are literally just playing on the hype of the people. They are reading Reddit, they are reading Twitter, and then they are doing the things which made them look like as if they work on something which is Konami or Silent Hill related, right? Like, the game doesn't even exist. This is just them playing for time, and nothing really happens. Can totally happen. There's a chance for that. Or, third option, this is real, and this is really a Kojima, Konami, Silent Hill thing, and we don't know at this point. Like, again, it's just, at this point, I don't really care for the outcome. Like, I'm okay at this point with all three of them, because the entertainment I got out of this was already enough. And no, I don't mean the people who are being aggressive. I don't mean the people who are threatening other people. And that always happens. It sucks. But yeah, that really sucks. But no, that's not what I meant. It's just, it is interesting to watch. Now, what happened over the weekend? Well, the first thing I've basically discovered, because this was weirdly enough still a topic, is that apparently Hassan, who is the lead developer and also the only developer we have seen so far, had an interview, and he had an interview with an Arabian speaking podcast, and this is one of the pictures they posted, and people still believe that Hassan could be a deep fake. This is basically just Kojima as a deep fake. Well, maybe that we do not know, but what I realized is that he is wearing a bulk T-shirt, and if you're like, huh, what is that? It's a European. It's a European company who is doing a lot of like fashion stuff, right? They have a fashion company, and fascinatingly enough, they're sitting in Amsterdam, which is also the place where, or not Balk, I'm sorry, Baller, I don't know how to pronounce it, probably Baller. Yeah, you can see right here, this is their above page, and they have been founded in 2013, and they are sitting in Amsterdam. What does that mean? Well, probably means that Hassan is buying his clothes in Amsterdam, where he's also working at the project. And some people now might say, okay, so that means it cannot be Kojima because Kojima is sitting in Japan. Well, here's the interesting part. Kojima Production actually opened up a satellite studio in 2017, 16, something like that. They opened up a satellite studio in Amsterdam, close to Guerrilla Studios. So maybe Hassan is working in reality at a satellite studio. We don't know. The only thing we know is that he is apparently buying clothes in Amsterdam. Nothing to go by, but I really think that Hassan is not a deep fake. Like, at best, if this is all true, he might be actually a person who is working at the Kojima satellite studio in Amsterdam, but that's about it, really. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because here's the interesting part. Kojima also hired, I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago. Kojima actually hired somebody who specialized in arcs, who is doing all those like hunts for clues. Like, he specifically hired a person a few years ago for all of this. So he could still be an actor. He could still be an actor. Totally. And I know what people say at this point. Man, Mole, just give it a rest. Just give it a rest. It's not real. Yeah, maybe. I just find it fun. But here's the point I really want to point out, and I think like some of the bigger YouTubers already said it on Twitter, and I'm in the same league here. If Blue Box really is a legit indie studio with no ties to Konami, Silent Hill, or Metal Gear, it seems clear they know exactly what they are doing with teasers like this, and the hype they are generating will come back to bite them if people aren't blown away by what they unveil. Why do people think we are tied to Kojima? Anyway, here's our logo in some Metal Gear font. It's not the same Metal Gear font, by the way. It's very close to it, but not the same. Like, it's very much the example of act as I say and not as I do. Because the company is saying, no, we don't have any ties with Konami, Kojima, or Silent Hill, and then they're doing all the shit which ties them exactly to those people. I was like, yeah, at this point, don't get me wrong if I think you are tied to them. Like, you tell me what you are not, but you behave exactly like that. And that's a problem. That's totally a problem. Also, So here's something very interesting which I came up with in the last few hours. And this is something I really had to think about. And I haven't seen this coming up anywhere else, so I put it out there. This is my theory for my conspiracy. As you know, I've been working in the gaming industry for over 10 years. And in my first years, I've been working as a games journalist. I have run tons of news. I have done investigative journalism. I have looked for reports, for rumors, for insider information. Like I have done what a lot of the big international known journalists like Jason Schreier did, but more on the local area things. Like I was working for a local website in my country, right? So I didn't really have like an international audience. And I also didn't write them in English because, well, they were locally and, well, English is not my local language. However, and this is rather interesting, and this is why I bring this up. So we had a good chunk of journalists like Jason Schreier and some others who were starting to dig deeper. And they were like, yo, I'm in. Like, the more I'm looking into this, I'm in. And then something interesting happened. They clearly had an interview with Hassan, or whomever. And then after those interviews, they were like, yeah, I'm out. And nothing. I was like, wait. Why are you not writing a news about this? Why are you not writing an article about this? Like, the one thing I've learned as a journalist is you break the news or you break the news. Which means you were the first writing about this, or you make sure that you are setting the record straight and you stop all the rumors. Like one of the two things you were doing here. So they had an interview with Hassan and they didn't clearly do any article about the interview. No, nobody was talking about it. Like, we don't know what they discussed with Hassan in those interviews. Why? Because they probably signed an NDA. And I have rarely seen interviews being under NDA. It happens, but when they happen under certain circumstances. And the circumstances is that the things you are about to talk about are not allowed to leave the room to a certain time. Because there is an embargo in place, they haven't done the announcement yet, and so on and so forth. And an indie studio is not doing this. I never had an interview with an indie studio where I had to sign an NDA and then they put me on an embargo for a long time and I had to basically pretend as this interview never happened. It happened with some big games. Like it definitely happened with that, and some of those embargoes were quite long. Like I sometimes had interviews with those games like 6 months before the release. So that definitely happened. I remember that with Diablo 3 was one of those things where we had like some early scoop on it and we're not allowed to talk about it. But normally most of the interviews are just happen on the side and they want you to have that out there. Like I still remember when Rift came out and I did an interview with, I think it was the lead level designer of Rift back in the day. And it was a super long interview because I was a dick. I was asking too many questions and I didn't let this dude leave. I was also at the release party. And he spilled the beans for a lot of things. Like when you were looking back at this interview, he basically talked about the first expansion. He already talked about the first expansion of Rift, like how you're going through the rifts into like the land where the monsters are coming from and so on and so forth. Like he actually spilled a lot of the beans and there were no NDA on it, no nothing. And it's like, it's kind of weird when you have like a bunch of very knowledgeable interviewers and journalists having those interviews with the small little indie studio, and the only thing they are saying afterwards is, yeah, I'm out. Yeah, I have nothing to say about this. Yeah, okay, I'm off the hype train. Yeah, I'm out. I was like, okay, so why are you not setting the record straight? Like, you don't have to tell us which game we are watching here. You don't have to talk about the game. But they could have talked a little bit more about the studio. How the studio started, when it started, what it did, what their plans are. You can, like, again, they are skilled journalists. They know how to conduct an interview and how to ask questions to get the answers they want and to not get hit by the NDA. So even if this was a little indie studio who made them sign NDAs, they could have done more. And they decided to just let it rest and never talk about it ever again. That's not what they're doing. I mean, look what Jason Schreier is normally doing. When you look at the work he's normally doing and how he conducted himself after the abandoned interview, it's like, okay, what have you seen and what have you signed that you are now so quiet about it? He could have done like a 10-minute article, 10 minute to do, not to read, but to write, and just put it out there like, hey folks, this is what the studio is doing. This is what's going on. That's the end of it. Nothing. It's weird. It's absolutely weird. The next thing which I find super interesting, so we know that apparently 50 people or around 50 people are working at the project. And none of those people are on social media. Like, Hassan is apparently the only person on social media who works for the studio. I was like, you were telling me the other developers are not? In this day and age, very unlikely. Like, we would have at least found another 1 or 2 developers. None of them do. And so, like, for me, it more comes to the conclusion of this is a complete scam. But then again, I would have expected that a person like Jason Schreier, who has been in the business for years, even with an NDA, would have said, screw it. Like, you were a scam. Like, everything I've heard, everything I've seen, like, you were a scam, and I don't give a damn about your NDA here at this point. Like, I have to warn the people about what you were doing. Or, this is some real stuff, and we will find out soon. So, whatever it is, there's one last rumor that we will apparently get a PlayStation State of Play on August 10th or August 12th, which is next week, which is also the same time when Abandoned is apparently starting to release a trailer over the real-time experience app. And we will keep an eye out for it. If something happens, you will definitely hear it here first. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate if you might consider to leave a like. And if you, didn't like this video for whatever reason, there's a dislike button right next to it. And if you're new to the channel, you want to see more real gaming news, get some updates regarding the conspiracy theory and also some reaction videos and so on and so forth, they came to the right channel, and I would appreciate if you might consider to subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you next time. Stay safe.